A blackberry pie is quite different than other fruit pies or even other berry pies, but Christie's here to show us all the tricks.
That's right, Julia. Blackberry pie is different because of the texture. Blueberry pies, cherry pies tend to be a little loose, a little bit runny, but blackberry pie has a firmer, thicker consistency so that when you go to slice it, you can actually get a nice, clean slice.
Aha.
So our challenge was to get this great, thicker texture without obscuring the really bright, tart, sweet flavor of the blackberries. Well, we're gonna start with the crust first. We're gonna make an all butter crust today.
Ooh, I love all butter crusts.
They're great, but they're sometimes a little difficult to roll out. So we've solved that problem by adding a little bit of sour cream.
Very smart.
I have 3 tablespoons of sour cream here. I'm just gonna measure 1/3 cup of ice water.
Keep it cold or else the butter will melt. If the butter melts, your pie dough won't be flaky.
Mixing it together now is also gonna make it easier to incorporate into the dough. Okay, so we're gonna use a food processor. I have 2½ cups of all-purpose flour already in here. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna process this for 5 seconds just to get everything mixed up together. Okay, now I've got some butter.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So they're about 1/4-inch pieces. I have 2 sticks of butter, that's 16 tablespoons of unsalted, of course, and I froze them for 15 minutes. So I'm gonna pulse this. I just wanna cover some of that butter with the flour, but I wanna keep distinct chunks of butter. We wanted them to be about pea-sized pieces. So you can see we still have some good pieces of butter in there. Now it's time to add the liquid. Just gonna add half of it at first, and we're pulsing this again. About 3 pulses, just to start to get it incorporated. So now I'm gonna scrape the sides, just to make sure that any moist bits aren't all stuck to the sides. So now the rest of it, about 3 more pulses. So at this point, you want to take a clump of the pie dough and squeeze it together. And if it forms a nice cohesive clump, and that looks pretty good.
Sure does.
I'm not going to add any more water to this because it will hydrate as it sits. So let's just take this over here. I'm going to first remove the blade. I'm just gonna kind of smush this together. But if I can do this on the plastic wrap that I'll be wrapping it up with, then it's gonna just make my counter a lot less of a mess. I just wanna make this into a quasi disc so that I can divide it more or less in half.
Right, half for the bottom, half for the top.
Julia, will you wrap this one?
Sure.
Do this one?
Yes, you want to form it into a round shape. If you shape it into a round shape now, it'll be easier when you roll it out to keep that round shape.
Exactly. So we want about a 4-inch disc.
Okay.
So we're just gonna put this in the refrigerator and let it chill for about an hour until it gets firm. Our dough is chilled, and I've already taken 1 disc out of the plastic. I'll make sure that I get some bench flour on my board. I wanna keep a nice round shape. I like using a tapered pin, and a little trick that I learned, use the tapered sides of the pin so it holds the shape. And then you turn it, again, to hold the shape, but that also lets you know your dough's not sticking. Lattice works really well in this recipe, but a lot of people are intimidated to make a lattice top pie crust.
Well, they can be hard with all the weaving.
So we're making a faux lattice.
Ooh, a lattice for beginners.
I'm gonna roll this out to 12 inches, which is bigger than the pie plate, but that's okay because we wanna have some overhang.
That is 12 inches on the nose, my friend.
Now, the challenge is always getting the dough from the workspace to the pie plate. So I'm just gonna roll my crust up onto the rolling pin and very gently unroll it onto the pie plate.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna go and lift up the edges of the crust and just let the crust sink down into the pie plate. I don't wanna stretch the dough. So this looks good. So I'm just gonna cover it with some plastic wrap. We just have to chill this for 30 minutes in the fridge. Would you mind?
Sure.
Thank you. I'll get started on the next one. So now we're rolling out the top dough. I think we're there.
Should we double check it?
Yes, please.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna do the same thing. Use my rolling pin to transfer, but I'm putting it on this parchment-lined rimmed baking sheet. So now I'm gonna use my pizza cutter, and I'm going to measure 1-inch strips. That's how wide my lattice strips are going to be. You know, it should be a 12-inch circle, so you should have 12 strips, no problem.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna cover this with plastic wrap, and I'll chill this for 30 minutes as well.
Okay.
Julia, our crusts are nice and chilled.
And they're ready.
They are ready. So now we have to fill them.
About time.
We're starting with 3/4 of a cup of sugar. The only other thing that we're flavoring this with is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And next we're going to add some cornstarch. We're adding 5 tablespoons. We had a time of it trying to figure out how to thicken this the right way. So cornstarch worked really well. And now it is time to add the berries. So I have 20 ounces or 4 cups of some really beautiful washed,
Gorgeous.
dried blackberries.
They almost look like little gems.
They really do. So once they're totally coated with this sugar mixture, we'll add the last flavoring, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice.
Just brighten it up a bit.
This is so bright, it's like eating sunshine.
Oh, I like that idea.
We want to mix this together until you don't see any white powder left. So I think we're ready to transfer it to our pie plate.
Time to make pie.
So we're just gonna spread this out a little bit. Now, we're gonna dot it with butter, as my grandmother would say. So this is 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I've cut it into 1/2-inch pieces. We're just gonna spread the joy. Now, we can start the lattice. So I wanna space these about 1 inch apart.
In the finished dish, it looks just like a regular lattice, except it's so much easier.
So much easier. But first I'm gonna press my lattice to my bottom crust. Make sure that that sticks. So they're nice and stuck together. Now I'm gonna take an egg that I've beaten, and this is going to be the glue that holds everything together. So I'm just gonna brush the length of the strips, but I don't wanna go all the way to the edge. Okay, now I'll take the remaining 4 strips, and again, I'm gonna go about 1 inch apart. So I'm just gonna press these lattice pieces now. You wanna get a good seal. Okay, now I can trim. And I wanna extend the crust about 1/2 inch beyond the edge of the pie plate. Now, we're just gonna do what we would normally do with the pie crust. We're gonna turn the edge under and make a little lip that sits on the edge of the pie plate. Now we have to do the crimp. This is my favorite part. So I'm just using my index finger and my thumb to kind of make a little wedge, and I'll use my index finger to press into that. I want the crimp to be sitting straight up and down right on that edge. Okay, we are crimped.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. But we're not quite ready because we're gonna brush this again. Now we're gonna brush the whole thing. So I'm gonna do the lattice strips and the edge of the pie crust. I have a teaspoon of sugar, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it. All right, now we're gonna put this on a baking sheet that we've lined with parchment paper. I have my oven set, it's at 400 degrees, lower middle rack. I'm gonna bake it for about 45 to 50 minutes and make sure that I rotate the pan halfway through baking.
Ooh, now that's a pie.
It does look good. This is what we're talking about.
That's gorgeous.
It is. So it was in the oven for about 45 minutes. I rotated it after about 20. And what we're really looking for is this golden brown edge on the crust, and we want to make sure that that filling was bubbling the whole way across so that we know that the cornstarch has cooked fully.
It's bubbling.
It is absolutely molten right now. So we're gonna have to let this sit for at least 4 hours. And what that's gonna do is give the cornstarch gel a chance to set up, the pectin and the blackberries a chance to set up, so that we will have that nice, thick, sliceable filling.
All right, worth waiting for.
It's been cooling, it's been setting. This looks good and firm to me. Oh, do you hear that?
Yes. Whoa, look at that. It's set up so perfectly you could slice through. It doesn't ooze all over the plate, but it's also not straight up Jell-O. And I have to say, that is the tidiest first slice of a pie I have ever seen.
It's just so summery.
Yes, it is like sunshine in your mouth. It tastes like summer. And you can even see the flaky layers of that all butter crust. That's thanks to using the right amount of liquid and just enough butter.
It's pretty fantastic, I think.
To make the perfect blackberry pie, start with a good homemade pie dough made with a little butter, some sour cream, and just the right amount of water. For the filling, combine sugar with cornstarch and toss in whole fresh blackberries along with a little lemon juice and butter. Finally, top the pie with an easy My First lattice crust so that the berry juices can evaporate and thicken in the oven, and be sure to let it cool completely before serving. From Cook's Country, a delicious and foolproof recipe for Oregon Blackberry Pie.
Thanks for watching Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen. So what'd you think?
Leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or just say hi.
Now you can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
Alligator.